Okay. All right.
I think.
Okay. All right.
I think I finally got rid of my college book on data structures and algorithms.
This book right here.
Okay.
So, you know, this book is 700 pages long, but half of it is simply case studies, the historical log of algorithms. That's it. And I saw the video with you and Odie. Yeah, you and Odie did a video.
Can you hear me again?
Yep.
You said you saw a video with what?
You and Odie.
Odie's a sharp dude.
Yeah, he wants to move to Sweden, I think.
Yeah.
We're going to come here in Sweden, yeah.
He should move to Miami so I could build a business and hire him to basically build as I collect. But yeah.
Yeah, you know what? There's a company that I was contacting. They're in Sunrise, Florida. And I was a little scared of Sunrise, Florida, because it's right next to the Everglades.
Okay. Why is that scary? Well, was it in the medical industry?
Yeah, they can stack the bodies out there. Let's see, it's SR Technologies.
You don't want to work there. I'm saying that on video. You don't want to work there. And they're not in Sunrise. They're in Davie, Florida. You don't want to work there.
Ow. Yeah, they it's manufacturing, and I don't want to be recorded talking badly about the manufacturing sector.
It's not manufacturing. It's surveillance. You don't want to work there. You don't want to work there. You will be so frustrated. You'll be Samuel Jackson every single day. It's working with a whole bunch of monkeys. All they know is C# syntax. They don't know how to do anything else. And they're always, if you notice, they're always hiring. There's a reason for that. They're not a huge company, but they're always hiring, right? So that's a red flag. You don't want to work there.
I see. Okay.
I said that. You don't want to work there.
Yeah. So, what I've noticed recently is this new trend of demanding computer science level abilities in the interview. So, one example is Google, of course, Microsoft, of course. The issue is, I assume it started with social media, because in social media, there is the social graph. And I'm sure people at Google understand this, even though their social media platform is very unsuccessful. But the graph theory is one of those computer science theories that I assume they want more people to know, working as they allow more people into their companies going forward. They want more of those people to know about graph theory. But once you get hooked on graph theory, the slippery slope is like, well, let's just take it all the way. You should know about all of these theories. So what I've learned so far is there's a holy trinity of computer science, all right? And it's based on these three theories. There's proof theory, there is type theory, and there's category theory.
Category theory, I still don't understand.
Well, we all use it every day. There's a wonderful talk by Eugenia Chang, and she, very charming, wonderful talk about how she's trying to teach artists category theory. Or basically, she's not teaching artists category theory. She's teaching artists that they're already aware of something that they're already aware of, except adding this formal discipline of category theory on top of it. So proof theory leads to logic, and the logic leads to a more formal way of speaking in order to make your proofs work, right? And type theory leads to programs. So whenever we talk about dynamic typing, duck typing, static typing, all of these type systems are based on type theories. So that's a whole thing that leads to writing code, okay? And then finally, category theory leads to algebra. And I'm thinking, what the hell is that? Algebra, but this guy from New York, okay?
Yeah, your video's been blurry the whole time. I haven't said anything, but I can't read the title because it went blurry.
The algorithm design manual.
It's still blurry, but okay, it was clear for the first like minute, and then it got blurred.
Must be my low light. How's that?
Yeah, that's better.
All right. So this guy Stigma, the algorithm design manual. He has a heavy Brooklyn accent, and he says, okay, every 5 seconds when he's talking. Okay. So imagine just doing a lecture with him, okay, for like a year. You know, you're a computer science student, you wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning, okay, and you gotta listen to this guy going, okay. But what he does though is that he addresses the algebra issue with a mind-blowing revelation for me after 20 years of doing this coding stuff. Okay, I'm starting to talk like him now. When you have a loop, or when you have recursion, in your case, in Fsharp or in functional syntax, you're going to have recursions more than you have loops, okay? That can be expressed algebraically using sigma notation, summation. So big O notation comes from sigma, it's like a subset of sigma notation. So this idea of a finite series or a infinite series that converges is directly related to a loop in your program. So you can express your loop as a sum, as an infinite or finite sum. You don't want it to be an infinite sum. That means you're going to get Stack Overflow. So your summation is eventually going to converge to a limit. So that limit is usually called an asymptote, which I recall when I was a kid taking my math classes. So asymptotic notation is big O notation. So this idea of a direct link between algebraic summations from pre-calculus and computer science is a revelation. Somebody should have just told me this years ago, because I've already studied this in college. And I just didn't know that those two things were connected.
So what, you're studying functional programming now?
Well, based on our last talk, I know I go around, our talks are very long and I cover many topics, but I'm naturally working my way toward it. I think my main theme, which you found very unappealing and uninteresting, is that I have to use C# as a miserable compromise. It's a miserable compromise to use the functional features of C# to gradually move myself toward functional programming. So that gradual, it's almost like me telling you, okay, Frederick Douglass, I know you want to get us out of slavery, but we're gonna gradually do it step by step. It's like Booker T. Washington talking to W.E.B. Du Bois. I'm just, one is saying, let's do this now, let's get this done now. And the other was like, let's do this gradually. Let's learn a trade. And, so I'm using the features that, and I guess my legacy load is probably bigger than yours. So I have, as you can see on GitHub, I have tons and tons of C# code. So for me to just overnight say, forget about all of that, I'm doing F#, I can't do it because my personality just doesn't work that way. I have to move myself like moving a ship, like moving huge titanic ship. I got to move myself toward that by taking everything with me. I just can't break and leave.
My
So
opinion is my
you have the
opinion.
advantage of starting off
No,
functional programming.
that's not true. My advantage is I have. Do you have a headset? Because I hear my echo.
Oh, it's not plugged in or anything. I don't know. I'm just using the mic on my camera.
Okay, I guess the echo is coming in through the speakers on your machine. But I was going to say, I think my advantage is I'm a really private person, and I don't have that many distractions in my life. And so, like, I don't have kids, right?
Okay.
I don't have that many responsibilities, and so when I am working, once the 9 to 5 is over, like I usually choose to go to a cafe and read up on some books or practice, some code kata in Fsharp or some other functional programming language. And so, to make a long story short, I probably have more time than most people to learn something professional, where people may have other obligations that have a higher priority.
Okay, I can see that. I can see that because you can literally look at my GitHub activity and see what I've been doing, and there is this blank space, and that was while I was working at my last company. There's like sort of very few check-ins, and then all of a sudden the check-ins just started just getting more and more dense. The green got darker and darker green. Okay, and that was after I left the company. Okay. And the number one thing I did was move myself to Angular 6, which again, I'm sure from your point of view, you would say that's a distraction. What are you doing distracting yourself, wasting time, moving to Angular 6? And from a market point of view, that might be a correct assessment because React is what people are looking for, apparently, according to social media, but I've already invested in Angular. My personal company website was built on AngularJS, so I had to convert it to Angular 6. That was a time sink nightmare, and I'm not as young as I used to be. Stuff like that used to be fun when I was younger, where I'd get lost in this rat hole, and I just say, oh, what a rat hole, this is great. Undocumented feature, but now at my age now, I don't have that level of time to get trapped in Angular rat holes. For example, the animation features of Angular. If you want to reuse an animation, that feature isn't really complete. The guy who is working on that doesn't want to interact with me or talk to me about it because he himself clearly must know that this feature is not complete. What is complete in terms of animation in Angular are the CSS animations that you can declare as a sort of attribute or a sort of an injectable attribute at the top of your component. You can declare these CSS animations, but those you can't put variables in there. You can't reuse them and share them. All of those features are relatively new. So the animation player, for example, you can only use it once, which is unheard of. This is ridiculous. I mean, jQuery does this with no problem. Okay, so I'm in this rat hole trying to deal with this problem, and I'm thinking this guy's at Google. This guy must be making $250,000 a year or more, and he can't fix this little problem. So that was a waste of my time. Okay, a severe waste of my time. I would rather have been working on Elm or some sort of functional thing, but I was stuck on that crap.
Is fabulous now. That's the next hot thing, and that's .NET focused for mobile development that 0.001% of people know about. Fabulous.
Yeah, Fable or
no, Fabulous.
Oh, yeah, I'm one of those people that did not know about that.
Well, I was one 3 days ago. Are you familiar with Twitch?
Yes.
I just got hooked to Twitch, so I'm watching this guy.
Yeah, all those code things you're doing on Twitch, there are .NET guys doing the same thing, but they do it on Twitch, and they get sort of people donate money while they're coding, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah. So all that, because this last thing you've been doing over the last few weeks is very intense, but most people do that on Twitch because Facebook has no love and no functionality for that behavior, really. So.
Yeah, I mean, I watched this one guy code on Twitch, and I don't know. I kind of miss like working with people that work in the same space or actually care about what they do, because there's certain things I pick up on that I never really knew about, and so I think Twitch. I think I want to start paying more attention to it. I'm not sure if I'm going to actually start live streaming in Twitch. I'll probably just stay on YouTube, but I mean, there's some people that I think I'm a fan of right now. Just watching them.
Yeah, I'm messing around with OBS Studio and YouTube because I don't like, I'm going to be honest. In fact, there's a Jamaican guy who presents himself on YouTube the way I think is culturally appropriate to me. And he basically doesn't show his face. He shows you his hands while he's cooking, right? And he's kind of whispering into the camera. It's almost like you're a kid sitting on his back and you're looking at him work. And that's really the most natural way most of us have learned as children. We're sitting in somebody's lap and they're sitting down with the thing in front of us. We're not looking at their face, talking directly into their face for hours and hours at a time. And this Jamaican guy, all he does is cook food. And I like that format. He shows you the stove, he shows you the ingredients, and his hands put the stuff in the to me, that's more natural. But this idea of gazing directly into someone's face, that's more of a psychological effect that's related to advertising and Hollywood films, and the idea of teaching someone or passing on information. So I'll take pictures of this chalkboard and just stream me writing on the chalkboard. That's the idea. So a lot of the complaints, another interview complaint that not only I have, but many others have when you're dealing with Google or Microsoft is the whiteboard culture, where they bring you into a room, put you in front of a whiteboard and say, tell me how to solve this problem. If you don't have that pattern and practice in your lifestyle, it's going to be very difficult for you to do that in an interview. Yeah, if you don't have friends that you go to the bar and have a beer with, how do you get that into your life unless you try to practice it by doing it, on YouTube? So that's one alternative.
I never get through those interviews ever. Like, I've interviewed with Amazon, I've interviewed with Jet.com.
Yeah, but you don't have people you go to the bar with and talk about code. You don't have this casual. See, you probably know more things non-verbally about a technical subject than you do verbally because of this lack of contact every day of your life. It's like it's developing a muscle.
It is.
Where you're having casual conversations with people who are your friends or people who are with you every day, and you're just casually talking about these very intricate technical problems. So if you notice my behavior on GitHub, which is supposed to be a social coding platform, I'm literally talking to myself. If you look at, I assign myself tasks and then I write down what I did. And for someone who's probably younger and they have an excellent memory and they don't have that many problems, they say, what is this weird guy doing this for? But 6 months from now, or even 3 months from now, I don't know what I did. So the very least I can do is write to myself.
Man, I think it's building a habit. So I was doing the same thing. Like, it's a sense of accomplishment, right? I get off when I write down a task that is important that gets me one step closer to the end goal, and then I complete it and I have the satisfaction of removing it, right?
Yeah.
There's times where I will create, I'll take 2 minutes to create a new task, and the time that it takes me to complete that task is 30 seconds. And I just love this. I just love the sensation of removing it after I'm done. It's the human psyche, the ego, everything else. So
Yeah, well, see, the thing that happens, and I'm sure this happens to everybody, this probably happened to you, but someone comes to you and says, what were you doing? How come it took you that long, you know?
I
And
tell them to check my status updates in the email.
Yeah, you can literally prove that to the person. Like, I have a thread that lasts 20 days. I checked out an issue against myself with Angular that took me 20 days to get through. And there's no way, if someone came to me 6 months later and said, what were you doing on Angular? You took forever. I wouldn't remember. I wouldn't be able to defend myself. But now I can say, go look at that 20-day issue that I had, and you can literally pick out, oh, bro, you should have just done that, and you would have solved the problem in 5 minutes. Guarantee you that's not going to be the case. Just, they're all there. Just 20 days, okay? It was terrible. It was terrible. And a lot of it is JavaScript libraries that are in chaos. And this is the very thing you've successfully avoided by going functional, by dealing with Elm, is these JavaScript libraries that just go rogue. I can check my code in to GitHub and it'll be just fine, but 3 days later, they might find a vulnerability in one of the JavaScript library my code depends on. Now I gotta go in and check my code out and run this audit tool, this NPM audit tool, to check for the vulnerability, update my packages and put it back.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of web, but you were a WPF developer. What happened?
Yeah, I do that too. My WPF code is right up there on GitHub too. In fact, I just recently upgraded it to the latest Prism and Unity, I think, yeah. So the idea is to be a full stack dev for desktop and web, cross-platform. That's the goal.
You'll probably always have a job just doing web in general. I won't even focus on desktop.
Really, because of my Microsoft bias. I have a Microsoft legacy that is making employment somewhat difficult.
No.
Yeah, because the thing that I've noticed is, and maybe you can, well, from your East Coast point of view, it might be better, but it's much worse on the West Coast because of the presence of Silicon Valley and what Microsoft did. But basically, a lot of the companies that invested in Microsoft would have invested in Linux had they heard about it back in the early 2000s, late 90s. Had they known about Linux, they would have went with Linux. But instead, they went with Microsoft. And then somewhere around 2005, 2006 maybe, they said, forget it. We're not investing any more in Microsoft. We don't, we're done. Okay, so they have this Microsoft code base and legacy and technical debt just sitting there. And they hire people like me to come in and maintain it for a while until they can move on to something different. And that's basically that's been my career. So in terms of me trying to push them forward to use cross-platform Xamarin tools, because you're already using Xamarin Forms. See, I want to use Xamarin Forms, but I'm still stuck on WPF.
Okay? I mean, a lot of stuff that I do is outside of work, though. Most of the skills that I've learned have nothing to do with my day job. It has everything to do with a certain number of digits on the paycheck that I dream of. That, well, I tend to focus on. All right, well, in order for me to secure that type of paycheck, maybe I need to spend my off hours picking up these technologies and updating the internet on my knowledge of it. So I mean, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. And even on the Angular side or on the React side, there's this thing called React Native.
Yep.
where you basically have the whole web dev experience, but you compile it to a desktop app. PWA, it's a web app that sits on your desktop. This is something coming. There used to be this thing called Air, Adobe Air, and it's the same thing. You just do a bunch of web stuff and stick it on your desktop. So there's a convergence going on, and so I'm just working toward that ability to express myself, produce a user experience on all of these platforms without regard to whether it's on the desktop or on the web server.
Yeah, I'm waiting for Blazor to mature some more so that I could take a peek at it and figure out if that's going to get me excited about web development. I looked at
It'll work out. But there might be a Microsoft stigma in terms of acceptance. I have been shocked by TypeScript. TypeScript shocked me. The fact that Google used it, I still can't get over that. The fact that Google used that, because even though it's the right tool, and they definitely need it, the politics should have prevented them. Because Facebook is an example of a company that would do that. The politics should have prevented them from using this Microsoft technology. So the fact that they use TypeScript just blew me away.
Yeah, because don't they already have? Is it Dart, or they have some? I think it's Dart.
They have. I want to say Go, but Go is not really for their web stuff. Dart and CoffeeScript maybe was the things they're working on, but somehow TypeScript came out on top. So, I find it the best way to approach. To me, TypeScript is the compromise that I'm looking for in terms of not touching so much JavaScript and working through TypeScript to reach JavaScript.
Well,
so that's
Elm is the alternative as well.
Yeah. It's on my list. I have a repo called Nodejs, which is some people might think that's the wrong name to name a repo, but it's all of my Node.js related stuff. That's the repo that I use to teach myself Node.js as a Visual Studio type of guy. I had to teach myself the Visual Studio Code world and the node-based world. And so that's how I did it, through that repo. So everything that I know about Node.js is on that repo. So on that repo is Elm. Elm is on there, Angular is on there, I think React is on there.
What about Fable?
Fable is on my .NET repo. I have a repo called .NET where I was trying to teach myself .NET Core. So my main point is everything that I know since 2017 is on GitHub. I don't learn things in private anymore. I learn things in public, and it's my way of really authentically giving back to the community. Even though I will never likely ever get any accolades for doing this, I'm just sharing what I know. And also it helps when I'm asking questions. If I can point someone to my code that goes through all the detail. So and on the flip side, I have a library that I call SongHi Core. SongHi is my company name, like Contoso, right? SongHi System is the name. And I have a repo called SongHi Core. And in that repo is basically every reusable routine I've collected over 15 years of working in the industry is all there. So the issues around reading JSON, issues around using configuration files, all those little boring low-level things are all there in one repo. One issue that most people would find completely boring, but it was a very difficult issue to solve, was being able to load files in a test from a relative path. Developing a convention to load files from a relative path so that you have so that if you downloaded my test project, you can run the test project without me having to know what drive it's on, what folder structure is there. And that was a big deal to me. And I spent a lot of time and a lot of energy trying to get that to work. And
that's not resolved in .NET Core.
Yeah. I actually had to. It works on .NET Core too. Yeah. So the and with .NET Core is even more important because they use JSON files for configuration now, and I want to write a test in a test project that can automatically reach out into the web project and pull the JSON config file out and use it for my controller test. Because the .NET Core has controller level testing built into it. In the old days, you had to use OWIN. You had to bring in this OWIN NuGet package to get that to work. But with .NET Core, it's built in. But what's not built in is the ability to reuse your original config file. So having this ability to retest through relative paths is, I do it through the test context, which makes me take out a dependency on MS Test. And most people in the real world don't use MS Test. They use XUnit or NUnit. So eventually, just like with Fsharp, eventually I'm going to have to rewrite all of my tests, move everything over to either the NUnit or the XUnit world to really get this thing working on there, to reach more people, reach more business.
It would be Fsunit, which sits on top of NUnit or XUnit. I'm using NUnit though, but
yeah, and the pressure to go to Fsharp. I think we talked about this last time I talked to you. The pressure to go to Fsharp is always there. For example, when I use a switch in C#, I only have one kind of case that I can use in the switch. In F#, I think there's like 16.
I think I understand what you're talking about. You're talking about like pattern matching strategies.
Yeah. So the switch structure uses pattern matching. The C# switch structure uses the same, or what is meant to be the equivalent of F# pattern matching, except I'm only using one technique, whereas F# has like 13 or 14 of them.
And F# is exhaustive.
Yeah, so to have, just knowing that every time I pull up a switch structure in C#, I know that, and it bugs me. Okay, it makes me want to move. Okay, so this is a real thing, but I have to approach it in a systematic way. I just can't move over. Now I have another repo on GitHub that's called LinkPad, and all of the LinkPad stuff I have is for studying WPF XAML, any sort of .NET framework thing, like covariance and contravariance. If I want to study what that is, I put it in a LinkPad and I put it up there. And I have exactly one. So you can actually quantify my activity in F# because I have exactly one F# file there. So if you come back 3 or 4 months later and there's still only one in that repo, then I have a problem.
And I still think you're making it harder on yourself trying to learn functional programming using an object-oriented language. I feel strongly against that. Like, I feel like you're producing pain that's unnecessary.
Okay. I mean, I can see where you're coming from. It's like learning something through something else.
I don't recommend that.
Yeah. See, but see the way that it's like to avoid overloading myself with too many different topics, I try to unify, which is again, you can say it's the bad habit of a physics guy, that you're trying to put together a grand unified theory of everything, right?
Are you into the theory of various sciences? So, for example, like, are you like familiar at the theory level of like, I guess it's Newtonian physics, right? Or just general physics as we know it on Earth, on the scale of Earth, versus quantum physics? Two completely different.
Yeah, there are, but there are connections. There are connections between the two. Einstein tried to approach what we now know as quantum physics through classical physics. So he's the guy you want to check with in terms of his journey toward quantum physics. But what's happening now in the last 5 or 6 years, maybe more, in physics is that the quantum theories have fragmented. So this whole fashion trend about multiple universes and stuff, that came from the chaos around the theories falling apart, according to some scientists, on the quantum level. So
what I wanted to try to like illustrate is you have physics as we know it based on the normal size of things at the, I don't know, for lack of a better term, at the normal size level, not at the atomic level, but at the you and me level, right? But then you have quantum physics, which is at the atomic level and actually below that or smaller than that. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, like physics versus quantum physics, is that it's very difficult to try to streamline behavior because they're completely different sciences, right? And so like OOP and functional programming, they're completely different. And so like
a perfect example of what you're talking about is the calculus, as we know it, was basically a syntax that helps Isaac Newton, right? The research that Isaac Newton needed to do, the calculus gave him, okay? In the quantum world, they have a completely different mathematics called Dirac notation, D-I-R-A-C, Dirac notation, completely different. So I understand, but you can actually do classical physics in Dirac notation, but it's kind of hard to do it the other way. And that's what you're trying to say to me, that I'm trying to use classical C#, classical physics C# to work in the quantum realm of F#, basically. And I definitely get that. I definitely get that.
So, for example, what's the latest revelation, if you can remember, within the past, let's say 3 years, that completely changed the way that you build systems? Or has there been such a revelation within the past 36 months?
No, because to me, that major revelation was triple D, domain-driven design.
Okay.
And functional programming plays a key. Functional programming cultural habits are key in this. In fact, I just had an interview this afternoon where I was talking about this, where you want to be able to, read out your code to a business person, and they hear the names that you're giving, all the variables, all the members of your procedures. As you go line by line through your code, all those names sound exactly like the business this guy runs. And in order for you to do that, you have to break your code down into smaller and smaller functional units. And you can do that in C# using some of the things that they pulled out of functional languages, like local functions now, but before they had this thing called funcs, actions, funcs and actions. So when you name these things, or even when you have a link query and you have a very, very long link query, your where lambda is so very, very long. You need to break that lambda down into smaller lambdas and give those lambdas names so that when somebody comes along and reads it, it'll sound just like business talk. And that's really the big revelation. Now, when you were talking to Odie, you did say something about, you said you removed all the logic from your code and then all of your objects are named after actions.
So I'm playing with this idea that I coined specification as a library, where I first do type-driven development and then I do test-driven development. So I literally have a library that represents, or should I say that contains my, in domain-driven design terminology, my ubiquitous language. And in addition to that, that ubiquitous language is actually determined by me first identifying the core operations within my domain. So, for example, I've been working on this long-running code kata for like this Get Ride application that's analogous to Uber or whatever. And so the core operations of a ride domain is to request a price. Well, that's a core operation. Requesting a price will more than likely be dependent on someone's account, their pickup, and their destination. Those are the three ingredients, right, or the three dependencies for getting a price or a quote, right? And so what I'm saying is I'll do type-driven development where I, with no code, like no actual implementation, just identifying the functions as its own type. And once I have identified the main functions, that's going to flush out via the parameters of those function types, the ubiquitous language for that domain. All that stuff gets flushed out, all it compiles, but it's no logic. It's just types. But these are the types that represent the language of the business. And so once I have these types, then I use these as kind of like jigsaw puzzle pieces, where I then start writing out these functions that map to these different function types. And so for me, I think it just increases the probability of a more correct domain and a lower amount of errors that could creep in. I didn't say no errors, but a lower amount. And this is referring to, I think, what you alluded to earlier, the algebra of a system. When you're defining these function types, where you say that my function called request price will take a user account as the first argument, pickup as the second argument, and a destination as the third argument, like you're already constraining that function to, oh yeah, and the resulting is going to be a quote, right, type. That a quote type is going to be that account, the pickup, destination, and then actual price. You're already constraining everything about that operation, where you have a limited number of things that you could actually do to get wrong. And I wish I could articulate that in a different way, but you're no longer playing with strings and integers. You're pretty much focused on types, and I just feel like it just lowers the amount of human error.
Yeah, I thought, that's a functional programming. I think functional programming is designed to lead you in that direction, I think. And also, in my ignorance, I keep thinking of CQRS for some reason.
I'm not a practitioner of that. Command query responsibility segregation. My understanding is that with CQRS, within your architecture, you are saying that I am not going to throw queries and within a repository pattern. I am not going to store. I am not going to throw in the same file operations that focus on querying data with other operations that are responsible for executing side effects relative to a database. And so my understanding with CQRS is an architecture that targets performance gains, where depending on a system, you may do more reads than writes, a substantial number of, or a substantial percentage of reads compared to writes. And so you kind of account for that for performance reasons. That's my understanding, but I never really practiced it before.
Yeah, I need to be able to distinguish between domain-driven design and CQRS. I think I read about it, but lost it. And that's really the big problem, is I can read about something, learn it, and then lose it 3 months later. Without practicing on the chalkboard, or the code kata, as you say, it can go away.
Yeah, well, I think the thought process is with CQRS and microservices at a whole, you're focused on building out libraries that of a system or components of a system that can evolve independently of one another. And so it seems like you work at a lot of corporations that probably have teams, and there's probably multiple teams on a given project, and so there's dependency issues, and one team has a dependency on another team before they can finish what they need to do. And so that's where I think the CQRS and microservices tends to be an alternative, so that people are able to work in silos and they manage their own data stores, and it's completely separate. And this is where duplication may be okay, at the expense of not having dependencies on others that will slow you down. But
yeah, I mean, I think I'm doing microservices right now. I think so. So I'm not certain. Okay, so my company website is a dashboard of all the feeds, which basically summarizes all of my activity on the internet. So if somebody really wanted to find out what I'm doing, it's all there. And I'm one of those people that want to find out what I'm doing. You've heard the stereotype of programmers is like herding cats. And that's one thing I've noticed about myself, where when I was younger, it used to be fun to get sidetracked and thrown on a different path. Like you're trying to go forward on one path, and then a couple of days later you get sidetracked and move to something else. I can't do that anymore. There's not enough time left on this planet. So I need to know what the hell I'm doing so I can get back to it. So I can pull everything up on one dashboard. So this is a totally different take on the company website. My company website isn't a slick business card for other people. It's a tool that I use for myself, because I usually don't have direct contact with the customer, sadly. I usually have to go through a headhunter, right? So let me just make a tool that I can use, and that's that dashboard. Now, this dashboard is assembled from a single JSON file. I have like a 160K, 200K JSON file that's just packed full of JSON that was converted from XML RSS feeds, right? Now I have a little web job that runs out and does this on Azure. Azure goes out, downloads all of these RSS feeds, and then I have another job, and I call these jobs activities, by the way. So I'm still using the noun version of a class that could be named for an action. what I call it activity instead of like action, right? It's the activity. So download feeds activity is one of these classes. And it downloads the feeds. And then I have another activity that converts it to JSON. And then I have another activity on a different server that takes the JSON and assembles it into a single app.json file. And then my client picks up that file. Now, all of these files are saved in Azure storage. So this is like gut bucket, low-level stuff. So you can see how a microservice could play around in there where it can generate do these little single tasks. And eventually, toward the end, you come up with a product. In my case, the product is the static JSON file. So in terms of my HTML history, I've gone from static HTML all the way to static JSON. A large organization will probably not need this technique because their data is going to be changing faster than mine. For myself, I can wait 6 hours for my data to change, So I can run a process on Azure that can generate like for example, my YouTube channels. Those update every 6 hours. So if you go to my company website, look at my YouTube channels that I've selected, those update every 6 hours. So all that, I have a job, another web job that goes out and pulls that data. So the web service to me is simply I'm confused. I'm not really confusing the web job with the web service. But a web job can call a web service. And then web service basically is doing one thing. It's like it has one concern. And then I can have another one that does another one. So I have these different projects. Most of them are on GitHub, where I have a very, very simple ASP.NET Core web service that does just a few things. And I have another one that does just a few things. And another one, and another one.
Well, do you have Stack Overflow as one of your jobs?
Yeah, it pulls. I have Stack Overflow. I have GitHub. GitHub is the one that really shows what I'm doing every minute, almost. It's really intimate down to every issue that I log, every code, every bit of code that I push. It's all logged there. And I also have Flickr, which is kind of old. No one cares about Flickr anymore. CodePen. And I am kind of frustrated that StackBlitz doesn't have this feature, right? StackBlitz does not allow you to look at your own activity unless you're on StackBlitz, which kind of sucks. So that really helps me. It helps me organize myself.
I haven't looked at this in a while, but the Nodejs thing, I haven't looked at this in almost a year. Stack Overflow, YouTube, WordPress. It sounds like something similar that you did, except this is in the Fsharp way, or at least my interpretation of Fsharp. I don't know where my is it? Yeah, I'm going off on a tangent right now, but
I tried to track this for a while, your activity on this, but the team that was set up, the Lambda cartel, what happened?
People like the idea of it when it came to actually demonstrating. They didn't find the time to actually do that. I like the code that I write. You ever marvel at your code from like a year or two ago and you're like, yo, damn, I write classics.
Yeah, this is nice. I don't look at my own code that way. It's
yeah, I haven't looked at this in a long time. But I don't know. I like this platform module. Anyways.
Yeah, my next F# task is to really learn what these pipes mean, because I see you have two different pipes here.
You said two different pipes? What do you mean?
YouTube platform use. Okay, the pipe greater than, the vertical bar greater than, and then the dash greater than.
Oh, no. So the pipe greater than, like this is a pipe into. This dash means yield, right? So this dash in C# is this right here.
Oh,
So
okay, those two.
that's just the F# representation. So whenever you see this dash and then, well, whenever you see this arrow, you translate that as yields, right? Or outputs. So our platform user dot platform, where we're going to pipe that into a function. Whenever you see this right here, the function keyword, it means that we're going to pattern match. Okay. And honestly, I think pattern match would have been a better word than function. But so this right here, this line right here is the same thing as saying this right here. Right. This is the common way. Me, I like to act like I'm cool and do things that people aren't used to seeing. But it's the same syntax. It's just a shortcut, what I did.
Yeah, it could be possible that a function in the theory behind this language is a pattern matcher. It's all it does. I mean, it's.
I think so. This actual function keyword, based on my 3.5 years of experience, that's all it is pattern matching. They just gave it the word function. I haven't seen it used in any other capacity.
But okay, when you're using this syntax, does function always return the same value?
In my experience, whenever you use a function keyword, you're always referring to a discriminated union that you want to pattern match on, and that's it. I don't know if I answered your question, but
I'm just going back to the formal definition of a function, that it returns, with every input, it is guaranteed to return the same output.
Yeah, but don't get this keyword function confused with the fun keyword. This right here. This is the function that's used in F#. So this is your lambda type of syntax, right? So you can say let foo equals, and then you can say function, and then x goes to x, I don't know, squared or something like that. So this is your function that's usually used in F# that you will write as a lambda, which is completely different from this over here. This function over here is, so far, all I've seen is always, with emphasis on always, being used for pattern matching, right? The function spelled out. Whereas fun is kind of a shortcut name for a lambda function or lambda expression.
Okay. And so what is the vertical bar greater than for? Is that assignment?
No, this is pipe into. So what that means is you're saying that this platform user dot platform property is actually of type is actually a discriminated union that could be one of these different items, which in C# would look like an enumeration. But in F# and other programming languages, it's called a discriminated union. So this platform is actually a property of type, a discriminated union that consists of YouTube, Stack Overflow, WordPress, Medium, etc. And
By the way, in TypeScript, this concept comes up, and I can see a lot of people coming from OOP working with TypeScript. They don't understand what's going on, but you would pick it up pretty quickly when you see that in TypeScript, you can have a type that is string or null. So it's string vertical bar null. So you just made a nullable string, but it's a discriminated union, I assume, between string and null, right?
I don't know. Null is kind of evil in functional programming. I think in C# they have.
What does the empty brackets mean under other? Is that the equivalent of null? And are the
No, this is an empty list.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
This could be 1, 2, 3. Of course, this is wrong, right? Because it has to be of the same type. But whenever you see empty brackets, it means an empty list. And yeah, that's all it is.
So YouTube, so is YouTube a type that's going to another type called platform user that goes to another type called YouTube links?
Nope. You got to remember that whenever you see this arrow right here, that means yield or outputs. So,
okay. So YouTube returns platform user?
If the platform property of platform user is YouTube, then we're going to yield a result such that the result will be our platform user will be an argument that is fed into a function called YouTube links.
Right. Oh man, that's elegant. Okay.
So you can rewrite this as this right here. That pipe operator is just a way of revisualizing something so that it makes sense in your mind, right? So you could write this function like, as long as you know YouTube links is a function, it takes an argument that we're going to pass in called platform user, and you can rewrite it that platform user pipes into a function called YouTube links.
So what happens if you place your cursor over YouTube links and hit F12?
Well, right now it doesn't compile because it says that I have a different version of Fsharp in here, but I could try to get this stuff to compile. Hopefully it shouldn't. I hope it doesn't take too much time. So
and then I also noticed you have this indentation of assignment.
Hold on 1 second. Hopefully all I need to do is update these versions and everything should just build. And I don't know if that's going to do anything. If I still get an error, then I'm not going to try to figure it out. I'll do it on my off time. Okay, so that builds. All right, so you're saying do what?
Just hit F12, like put your cursor over YouTube links and then hit F12. Okay. And the other question I have is, I see that you have, this is almost like Python in terms of indentation. You're inside the function based on the indentation.
Yep.
So you're saying that YouTube links is a function that accepts argument platform user, and then the body of the function starts with the line let user, and it ends with the list map, right?
Yeah, so in this case, it is returning a list that is converting. It's taking one list and is converting that list into a list of something else. That's what map means. Link of video and with the user's profile ID associated to it.
I see. So if you were following C# practices, you would be called YouTube links async.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. All right. This is elegant stuff here. Elegant stuff. Um, what does let bang mean? The let bang
And
video.
you could also like kind of enforce your compiler. This helps out a lot where like you want to specify what the output is going to be of your function, just so that you don't get tripped up. So you could say uh, link outputs link list, I think. Uh, of course, it doesn't like that right now. If if I yeah.
Okay. So
So
on line 272, what is that let bang doing there?
my understanding is let bang is the same thing as await. So you're doing an assignment. You're making a declaration of something called videos, and your videos is going to await the results of this upload list. So this let bang is await in C# when you're
I see.
async.
I see.
Yeah. So I think a lot of this is integration tests. But I learned I'll stop sharing. I learned a lot just messing around with this. The way I program now, unfortunately, when I'm getting paid to write C# code, it changed a lot. Like,
Mhm.
I mean, I'm pretty arrogant when it comes to the code that I write. Like, people marvel at my code. They wonder why I do certain things, and then they realize a couple minutes later, and they're like, "Oh, shoot, that's pretty cool."
Now,
So,
let me share my screen here if I can, if possible. What's the what's the share screen thing? Oh, there we go. Okay, screen two. All right, can you see my screen now?
yeah, I hear you now.
Okay, so I'm gonna go to let's see. Okay. See, I just checked in some stuff recently, my link pad. So queries, funky KB, and right there, that's it. That is it. That's all the F# I have.
Was that FizzBuzz?
No, I'm just teaching. Yeah. I'm just teaching myself pattern matching, and I've forgotten what this code does.
Oh, you got a for loop in there. You got to get rid of that.
Oh, really? What's the cool kid's way of doing this?
So you would have I gotta click on your thing. You would just have within within brackets, you would have
Oh,
like one dot 100 because that's your how you do a range in F#, and then you would pipe that into a list.map, and then you would use whatever function that you're using.
Okay, so this is step one.
Yeah. And so then the pipe operator, list.map, is a capital L for list. And then from there, you more than likely you would probably extract out that block of code into its own function. If you don't want to do that, then you would use a lambda expression. If you use a lambda expression, you would have within parentheses fun, and then I, and then arrow, and then you have that in there. Honestly, I think it would probably look better if it were its own function, but
Okay, okay. Okay, all right, wait. All right, so, what's that? How do I define a function?
No, you delete that. Say let fizzbuzz, and then put I or whatever variable you want to represent that integer equals, and then you can copy and paste your match 1 mod 3 comma I mod 5. You just copy paste that whole thing, that whole from top down, all that. Well, no, that entire thing, everything below, that whole pattern matching, you just throw all that under your let fizzbuzz. Yeah. And so
Okay,
let me see. Now, I don't understand the match 1 mod 3. Shouldn't that be I mod 3 and I mod 5? Yeah, I think that was a typo.
I got it from this YouTube video, so yeah, it's possible. It's possible.
And so,
what's going on here? What's oh, this is an indentation issue?
Probably you may. I would bring the match on the second line. Did it go away?
Yep. So is that right?
It's whatever feels right to you. I mean, I personally liked it the way that it was before, but it's totally up to the way you want it to look and feel.
I have an opinion with Fsharp on that level. So this,
to me, I think that should work. And
okay.
so
I'm going to hit F5.
That's the idiomatic F# way. Hence, that's why I wanted you to stop doing it the OOP way in F#.
That was just my first example. I was following this YouTube video. I have no idea where I got this from. I have to improve my notes here.
Well, the thing is I fell into the same practice. And so I would ask all these questions on Stack Overflow, like, hey, how do I do this? I'm trying really hard to do this, Stack Overflow community. Here's my code, but I'm just not understanding what I'm doing wrong. And so, like, Mark Seaman would be the first. You know who Mark Seaman is?
I think you might be talking about that guy.
Yeah, he's a beast. And so
you had this. Yeah, you talked to him on your channel.
Yeah. I literally flew down to NDC London to meet him and Scott Blashin because, like, it was really important to me to meet the people that would be responsible for the next probably 10 years of my career in regards to learning. But anyway, the reason why I say his name is because he would always respond with, well, what you're doing is a OOP way, but if you really want to learn F#, then you should probably embrace the functional programming techniques that F# was intended for, instead of you trying to brute force object-oriented programming techniques into an F# language. And so they kept on replying in that type of way to my questions. And so I finally just said, all right, I'm going to try my hardest to stop thinking in object-oriented, which, yeah, that's the way I was for the last 15 years, that's how I learned how to program was OOP. And so it took like 8 months for me to decouple the way that I build or the way that I write code. It took me about 8 months to remove that habit of always thinking object-oriented programming syntax. So.
Oh, how do you do multi-line comment? And is that?
You do a left parenthesis star or asterisk. Yeah.
Ah, okay. All right.
So there's another way that you can write that pipe or the pattern matching. So if you really want to do it if you really want to.
Real quick, what's this issue down here? The result of this expression is implicitly ignored. Consider using ignore to discard this value explicitly. Like I think are they talking about something like
so that's you don't that
like
file. Do you want to print that?
Well, it is printing. It's printing here. So, uh-oh. Yeah, so it's printing out the results inside the function fizzbuzz, but the results is the results of this bracket statement here. They're not going, well, I would think they're being piped, it's being piped into the list map. So, okay. So do I have to do something like this?
Now I hear the audio.
Oh, I lost audio? Okay.
Yeah, I hear you now.
What about that? Was that to?
No, I don't think so. I think you could just use. I'm not sure why you're getting that error because.
Yeah, it's gone now because I'm assigning it. I'm assigning, which is very unintuitive to me. I'm assigning. It looks like I'm assigning the result of all of this.
Yeah, I don't think you want to do that. I don't think that's going to solve your problem.
Well, in terms of syntax, it did, but not in terms of.
Well, if you delete that and just leave it like that.
Yeah, when I run it like that, the warning comes back.
The result of expression is consider. So I mean, you could use the ignore, right? You could pipe that into ignore and it should go away, right? No. At the end.
I tried it. That's the first thing I did, and what did it do? Oh, okay. All right.
And does it still produce the same result?
No, it's fixed now. So this is like null. It's like printing it's like piping to null in the Linux shell.
Well, in Fsharp we don't say null, we say unit. Well, we don't say void, we say unit. And in Fsharp we don't have null unless we're doing object-oriented programming using Fsharp. And so there's something else that you can do. You can replace your match statement with, okay, so
match with, I can use.
You can use you can delete match And you should be able to replace it with I and then use a pipe for it operator. And how does this work? Oh, I might be getting in over my head. Let me see. I changed my mind. I'll send you the snippet later because I think I'm going to end up butchering the syntax. Let me. Damn, I wish I could like copy your code and write it myself, because then it would be clearer for me to articulate. It's hard for me to articulate in my head.
That's what a pull request is on GitHub. I don't get a chance to do pull requests because I'm by myself. So yeah, so you feel free to enter a pull request. And here's another cool thing about GitHub is that I can write these little emoticons, right? Pencil. Actually, I like pencil too. Pencil 2 is cooler. Pencil 2, using, what kind of syntax is this? Using more functional syntax?
Sure.
Okay, with Scott, okay, and then commit, and then push.
What else?
Yeah, so I mean, if you ever get in that extremely generous mood, you could go through my C# samples on LinkPad and go, you know, Bryan would probably be blown away if he saw this done with like 3 lines of code in F#. So like I'm doing all these little things. I guess a great example would be working with I enumerable. I guess let's try that one, for example. Like if I'm doing something like that, and you would say, oh, you know, in F# you could do that in 2 lines.
Yeah, in F# your I enumerable is called sequence, SEQ. But
yeah, so I would like to have the ability to just flippantly and easily go through every one of these and convert it to F# without even thinking about it. You know, yeah. In fact, I found out the hard way during an interview this afternoon that I don't have a union example in Link to show myself how to do a union. And then here are the interview things I've done. So like with JPL, for example, this is what they asked me to do. And I did, and you can see here that I'm using, I'm trying to be functional through link in C#. So this is an example of me trying to talk to C language people using the functional features of C#. And it did not go well at all. They looked at this and go, what the hell is this?
Well, they probably said you over-engineered it. Well, did it print the results or no?
Oh yeah, it worked. I mean, you know, this works.
Oh, so why'd they get upset? Because it was unfamiliar to them?
Right. They can't, if this were introduced to their team members who've never even seen this in C#, they've never seen the use of the func keyword.
Well, can you replace the func angle brackets bool with just var?
Well, I have this lambda thing I got to deal with. No, I can't. Now I can use a local function, but when I wrote this, local functions weren't released in the .NET framework. So I can use a local function instead of func.
I'm saying though, couldn't you use inference and just use var is multiple of 3 equals lambda whatever? Versus
no, because I have to return the type. I have to specify the type. This is just one of the drawbacks of using func.
Okay.
It's not going to infer that much for a lambda. It'll do it for a value type or a reference type, but not for a lambda.
And you're familiar with string interpolation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you know what to call out. Yeah.
Yeah, this syntax can be changed to that now. Yeah. Yeah. So that was an example of going too far with my functional activism. It turned them off immediately, and that was the end of that meeting. And then, okay, what about JSON.net? Is that in? Of course, I know it's got to be in Fsharp, but are all the features available? Or does some of this apply or not?
The short answer is, if it's .net, it's .net. So if it works in C#, it'll work in Fsharp. But to elaborate, you'll be forced, more than likely, to use the object-oriented Fsharp to support immutability. So that's the caveat, more than likely, when you have to interact with C# libraries or frameworks.
I see. Yeah. So here's an example of basically me trying to teach myself pre-ASP.NET Core ON stuff by just setting up MVC in one single file instead of having a whole project.
Mm.
And I'm sure that would be not. I don't think Fsharp could really help with that, but that's very old stuff. And yeah, so ideally, I would like to have more than one. And oh yeah, here's the Google thing. What was up with that? Oh, okay. Yeah, that was their question. Yeah, so I basically wrote these extension methods of IEnumerable. Oh, what about extension methods in Fsharp? What's up with that?
Oh, they have extension methods and they have extension properties. I haven't really used it though. But so C# doesn't have extension properties, but in Fsharp it does. But the only object-oriented programming that I do in Fsharp is MVVM. So my view models and my that's pretty much it. It's just the view models and my app logic. That's pretty much the only object-oriented programming that I do with application. Well, that's not true. All right, so the edges of the application, everything that's not the domain, I do in object-oriented Fsharp.
Mm-hmm.
So that means your data access layer, or AKA data store logic, as well as your UI logic, mm-hmm. view models, etc. I use object-oriented programming at Fsharp. But when it comes to actual domain, yeah, that's in Fsharp, like functional.
Oh, now you just reminded. I'm gonna show you one more thing here.
So when I have to do like talk to a database server, like ADO.NET, I think .NET Core now supports type providers, which is a subject onto itself.
Let me see here. Jupyter Central. Okay, so I've been studying my algorithms course, that book I showed you earlier. This is chapter 1. Okay, and so this is nothing but markdown files, right? If I wanted to preview my markdown file, I can take a look over here, and that's the way it looks on GitHub. okay? But I have this other thing going on here where I just run a task to open my Jupyter notebook. I have Anaconda on this machine. And I know what you're thinking. What the hell does Anaconda have to do with Fsharp?
I don't even know what Anaconda is.
It's a data science package for Python.
Okay.
But I'm going to open up one of my notebooks here. This is chapter 8. I mean, question 1.8, chapter 1. And this reminds me of Mathematica. So I can run my Python code here. And this Python code will run, it'll produce this output, okay? Now you notice over here, I've specified the language is Python 3, but I could open a new Python workbook and I can change my kernel to, there you go, Fsharp. So I could run live Fsharp code in here, you know, teaching myself Fsharp. So it's a great way to learn Fsharp by running code directly. I think it'll really help because of the idea of a discriminated union. I think sometimes it's better to see it than read about it.
It took me forever to understand it. I learned Fsharp just going through code katas. I think like if you just Google code katas, they'll have a whole bunch of exercises, half of which is written by Pragmatic Dave. And I just went through those exercises and then spent time on Stack Overflow. They have a code review feature, and I would get feedback from the gurus on the code review.
Is that the guy?
No. Like did you Google code katas or? Oh, it should be the official site. Yeah. So I went through that, and I mean, they're not gonna. I don't think they have an Fsharp solution. They just have interesting problems. So I did the supermarket. And doing that, it kind of it taught me or gave me the realization that test-driven development doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a maintainable or a highly maintainable program. And so for the longest, I thought test-driven development was like the silver bullet for everything. But I learned that although it will lead you to a solution, it doesn't guarantee that your solution is well designed, right? And so that going through those code katas kind of enforced that understanding or revelation.
I might check it out, but I got to get through Stigma first.
You got to get through what?
Stephen Stigma.
Oh, that book?
Yeah. Oh. Okay. Got to get through his book and his lectures. See, the thing about it is the book. It's only 300 pages of 700 pages because the other half are just algorithms. And that's the other big quote unquote secret about studying algorithms is once you learn a couple of things, everything else, apparently the majority is simply studying the pre-existing algorithms. It's like being a lawyer and understanding previous cases, just going back and reading the history of the previous cases. So what a good algorithm teacher gives you is their greatest hits of algorithms, and you go study those. So the knapsack problem, there's got to be a code kata around the knapsack problem because that's a classic algorithm about, you have a knapsack You have these things sitting outside of it. What's the best way to fill it up? Just give me the procedure for the best way to fill it up, right? The Towers of Hanoi. These are another classic. The one I've just recently learned is very important to me is the set cover algorithm. So if you have like numbers 1 through 5, that's your universe. And then you have a whole bunch of subsets that are basically variations and replications of those numbers. Okay, find the best way to search all of those subsets such that you get your universe. So that's the set cover problem. So the set cover problem is very similar to you're in a warehouse like Amazon. Your customer needs 5 products, and these 5 products are sitting on your shelves, but you have multiple copies of these products. So how do you uniquely, go through and search your shelves in order to come out with these unique set of products? So that's the set cover problem. And I think those are, then he did insertion sort and bubble sort. So those are the classic ones right there.
I mean, you forgot radix sort and merge sort.
Yeah. Well, no, those are the only 2 he's given us in chapter 1.
Oh, okay. Then chapter 3 is red, black tree and B plus trees. But
yeah. So it's just getting comfortable with that stuff, and it's mostly for self education, self-help, health, to cover these topics. So that's my big news, man. That's my big news is the algorithm. To me, that's really the end of this journey. It's a big end. It'll take me years to get through this end, but that's really the end of my journey as a computer coder guy, as a developer. This is the end. There's no place to go beyond that, except related to like career stuff and social networking and stuff like that. But in terms of the patterns and practices, establishing a nice, healthy workout routine and base, this is everything. This is it.
And so, are you going to be charging? Will the market reward you with more money based on the amount of effort or investment that you've made or that you're making?
Probably not.
I find they don't give a damn about what I know and what I've studied. They don't care. They think that, well, so-and-so is charging $40 an hour.
Yeah. The Stack Overflow survey really opened my eyes to why someone like Donovan Brown would be paid more than us. And I say that because he's a developer who went into DevOps. And the light bulb went on when I thought about managers and DevOps people. The 2 things that managers and DevOps people have in common is that they deal with multiple other people. And so they're paid more. The company sees more value in these people because they're supporting multiple other people. So it's like they're buying one guy that can take care of 5 or 6 other guys. So that's what a DevOps person does, and that's what a manager does. So those people get paid more. So the sort of cynicism or the blindness, whichever way you want to call it, of the business, is that you're valued more by how many other people you take care of. So from their point of view, it doesn't matter how brilliant the developer is. If they went on Stack Overflow and they saw how many thousands of people I've affected with my activity, my very limited activity on Stack Overflow, they're not going to find any value in that because it has nothing to do with their company and the 6 dudes that they want someone to take care of. So I'm not directly taking care of those 6 dudes according to them. So they're not going to pay me more for that. So, but also it's a fashion trend. Like the current fashion trend now is AI and data science. So if you somehow connected your name to AI and data science, then you can start commanding larger fees.
Yeah, I'm scared of math. So that's not going to happen. But it sounds like you have a knack for it. So.
Well, yeah, I treat it like a language. There's two parts. There's arithmetic and there's math. So
I don't
the arithmetic part is hard. You know, like if someone told me what is 156 times 348, I don't have that Singapore math training to immediately multiply those numbers out for you. But some 9-year-old kid in Singapore has that training. You know, my daughter started learning that when she was a kid, but it didn't really stick with her. But that Singapore math teaches you how to do that arithmetic very quickly. Okay, that's completely separate from mathematics. Mathematics is a language. It's about language. The biggest problem with mathematics is dealing with the formality of introducing things. Like for example, when I was a freshman in college, I failed my math entrance exam because they were trying to teach me this thing about the limit. And just like you were talking about earlier, you can't say the word small. You can't say the word big because those are relative terms. So in order for them to teach me about a limit, they can't say the word small to me. So they use these deltas. They kept saying delta X and delta Y as delta X, delta Y, you know. And, you know, as a 20-year-old, I'm going, what is this? I don't know what they're talking about. And then, you know, one of those EOP guys, you know, one of those, you know, at-risk youth counselors on the college campus that they used to have in those days, he pulled me aside and said, the only thing they're trying to do is avoid saying the word small. As a limit gets smaller and smaller, it gets closer to X. They can't say the word small because that doesn't fit in with their formal language. And once someone told me that, the light bulb went on, and I understood what they were trying to do. So it's that game of formality that often throws people off.
Which is probably why I still don't understand what a monad is or category theory. I've watched countless videos. I don't get it. I'm waiting for that light bulb to go off or go on, whatever.
Yeah. The way, you know, one way I think I'm going to trick myself into getting deeper in those subjects is I truly want to know how to animate a tree. I want to be able to write some code that can draw a tree. You know, just take a tree of data and just draw the tree out, you know? And I need to learn, it's like you're animating an algorithm. And that will motivate me to get deeper and deeper into the subject, because I would like to use that animation, that computation-based animation, to move me into other subjects like film, documentary film, for example. So if I become a very adept at handling geographic coordinates, you know, geolocation, geofencing, all those things, I assume that I'll be able to animate activity on a map for a documentary much easier than someone doing it by hand. Because I can do several maps, perhaps all at once. I can sort of hand build all of the visuals and then run these computation routines to move the arrows and do all the animations all at once, because I know how to do it computationally instead of just artistically, purely artistically. And I think that could introduce to me a sort of business of making motion pictures or being involved in motion picture productions where I can lend this computational skill to the production. So it's a way to get me out of this closed world of IT and sort of, you know, get me to the world of the arts, you know, through this study. So that might pay off. It may not.
What is your next? I'm starting to tap out now because it's 9:30 over here.
Okay.
What are the specs of your next dev machine? I'm preparing to get my next dev machine, and I'm curious. Well, you don't do mobile development, do you?
I'm so far behind the time. The machine I'm talking to you on now is an AMD. I don't even know what this thing is. It's an AMD processor. It's got an SSD drive. Let's see, what is this? All right, so do on this.
Right click on my computer.
Window break. Okay, it's an AMD Phenom X6. Phenom, the Phenom processor. Okay. So let's see how far back that goes. AMD Phenom. Okay, there's a.
How much RAM?
This has 8 gigs of RAM.
Oh wow, yeah, you're behind.
Yeah, the AMD Phenom came out in 2007. Okay, that's how far back I am. However, let me share my screen real quick so I can show you these places. Keep it on your YouTube record. There's something called the PC leaderboard. From the PC perspective, folks. And they give you a dream system, high-end system, mid-range system, low-end system. So let's just say you want to do
Dream system. No, dream system.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, there you go. You see, it's the Ryzen. It's all about that Ryzen Threadripper. It's still from AMD. It's a $900 CPU right there, okay? And you wonder why I'm behind. And I would need 2 of these, okay? So I'm not gonna mess with that. 32 gigs of RAM? What are these people? Wow, okay. Yeah, so I would check this out. Now these people, you can watch their YouTube channel. Let's see, they're on, I'm waiting for my YouTube thing to load here because my virtual machine has to wake up. Okay, all right, so if I go to hardware. Come on, you can do it, microservice, wake up. You see, I don't keep my servers live. They have to wake up from sleep. I don't know what's going on here.
That's because you're doing Azure or something?
Yeah, my servers go to sleep. So, okay, so let me see. These guys, these are the guys, the PC perspective guys. So, yeah.
No, my next machine is going to be 64 gigs of RAM. And I plan on getting that in probably like another 2 or 3 months. And that should keep me content for 2 years.
Yeah, I don't have limitations. The only thing is this equipment is going to fail eventually, and I just have to replace the equipment. I don't have that much demand. I don't play 4K games.
You don't do mobile app development?
No, not yet. No. Yeah, that's the one thing. When you started dealing with Xamarin Forms, you had to install Java, right?
You have to install a lot of things, but I mean, the short answer is yes. The Java SDK is required, but it's supposed to install that behind the scenes.
Yeah, on your gigantic machine, it's not a big deal, but in my case, I'm dealing with, I have a collection of DVDs on this machine, and I have hard drive space problems because it's full of movies.
Mm.
So, you know, so that might drive me, but I'd rather get a Synology NAS first before I get a whole machine. So I can have an array of drives. So I can keep all my movies on one drive and have my own poor man's Netflix.
There you go.
And just watch movies. I use Kodi to watch movies. See, right now I'm looking at see over here on my first monitor. I'm looking at Leo Laporte here. You see. But like if I wanted to look at, can you see this?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, so I wanted to look at, I have a collection of lectures. I can go to Stephen Stigma. And there he is.
If you're a professor that teaches algorithms, one of the great things about teaching undergrad algorithms is it doesn't change very much every year. Okay? That I can blow my dust off my slides and not change.
He definitely sounds New Yorker.
Oh my God, computers change all the time, and all these new things.
Yeah. So I could do that, so I have a lot of stuff on here, and I got to keep taking stuff off. Like for the math stuff, for example, this stuff you would probably get into, but this tool is very expensive, right? This is, and it's proprietary. This is why I'm glad there's the Jupyter Notebook. The Jupyter Notebook does some of this stuff, but so you can actually dabble in your interest in mathematics using this Mathematica thing. It's for the home version, it's about $250, but for years and years, I was only thinking of the academic version, and that's like several $1,000s because they assume you were a university buying it.
Mm.
So that's the deal. But so this computer is sort of my TV and my workstation, my dev workstation. So, but it's getting older. I have this warning that a device driver is dying on me, which could be the fact that hardware is dying. It could be like a subtle warning that my hardware is dying. So I had the same problem with my SSD. I had to replace my SSD because I was getting these messages in the event log telling me that the hardware failed to write at this sector or something like that. So eventually I had to replace all of it. So ideally, I would like to have duplicates of everything, so I can immediately bring in the backup when something fails. But it'll take a while to build all that stuff up, and yeah.
Well, that's what's up. I'm tapping out. It's late over here.
Go.
But yeah, I'm gonna check out your GitHub. I think I'm gonna attempt to refactor your FizzBuzz.
Yeah. Give me some more.
Reduce it by like 2 lines.
Yeah. Help me. Build up my Fsharp collection so I can, because it's got to be, you probably have an example of discriminated unions. A very brief example of discriminated union explaining what they are, and then do you use LinkPad?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
I just use unit tests for everything. I don't even use the REPL. I just use unit tests. That's it.
Yeah, yeah. LinkPad is free, but you know, it's not a requirement. You can actually look at the text file and just edit the text file.
All right, Brian, it's been real. I'm really getting tired. I'm tapping out. But good stuff. Thanks for sharing. And yeah, you've been busy. So
yeah. Well, thank you, man, and you know, I'll come back again and see what's going on.
all right, I might hit the stop broadcast. Right. No, my screen is cracked. Hold up. All right.